The well was 200 feet deep, the geologist said. And at the bottom, under 30 years of standing water and mud, sat a fortune that would make her siblings' inheritance look like pocket change. But that was 4 weeks from now. 1 month earlier, Nora sat in the lawyer's conference room, watching her brothers divide up their father's empire. Through the window, downtown Portland gleamed, all glass towers and money. She wore her bakery uniform because she'd come straight from the morning shift. Flour dusted her collar. Her hands smelled like yeast and exhaustion. To Marcus Reed, I leave Reed Development Corporation and all associated holdings, currently valued at $18 million. The lawyer's voice was flat, bored. He'd done this 1,000 times. To Jonathan Reed, I leave the commercial property portfolio, valued at $12 million. Marcus smirked at Jonathan. Jonathan checked his Rolex. Neither looked at Nora. To Nora Winters, formerly Reed, I leave the family property at 4400 Canyon Road, including the original homestead structure and well. Silence. Then Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. The old place? Dad, even dead you're hilarious. That property is worthless. The house is condemned. The land's on a slope, unbuildable. The only thing on it is that dry well Grandpa dug in the 30s. Jonathan leaned back, lacing his fingers behind his head. Nora, I'm sorry. That's rough. The well doesn't even work anymore. Hasn't produced water since the 60s. It's literally a hole in the ground. A leaky hole, Marcus added. The shaft's unstable. County wanted Dad to cap it years ago, but he never bothered. You'll probably have to pay to seal it properly. Environmental hazard or something. The lawyer cleared his throat. There's a note attached. To Nora. Look deeper than they ever did. Your grandfather knew what mattered. The answer is at the bottom. Marcus rolled his eyes. Cryptic old man nonsense. Typical. Nora folded the note and put it in her purse next to the eviction warning she'd gotten yesterday. 72 hours to vacate. Her landlord was selling the building. Her bank account held $287. Her daughter Lily's school supplies for next year would cost $150. She'd already picked up double shifts at the bakery and weekend data entry work. There were no more hours left to sell. When can I access the property? She asked quietly. Immediately. Here's the deed and keys. Though I'm not sure what's locked, the house is falling apart. The lawyer slid papers across the mahogany table. Mr. Reed did pay property taxes through the end of the year, so you have time before that becomes an issue. Marcus was already standing, checking his phone. John and I are meeting the development team at 3. Nora, if you need help clearing the junk off that land before you sell it to some sucker, let me know. I know a demo guy. It's not all worthless, Jonathan said, suddenly conciliatory in that way that meant he wanted something. The land itself, even unbuildable, might fetch 50 grand to someone who wants privacy. I could broker it for you. 20% commission. That's generous of you, Nora said. She didn't mean it. Jonathan heard it anyway. Suit yourself. Enjoy your hole in the ground. He followed Marcus out, their dress shoes clicking on marble. Nora sat alone in the conference room overlooking the city her brothers owned pieces of. Her father had built Reed Development from nothing, but he'd never forgiven her for marrying Alex, that deadbeat musician, or for keeping Alex's name after he died. She'd been erased from family photos, excluded from company events. For 15 years, she'd been the Reed nobody mentioned. And now she had a condemned house and a broken well. She opened her father's note again. Looked deeper than they ever did. That night, Nora drove to Canyon Road with Lily strapped in the back seat of their Honda. The property sat at the end of a dirt road, 5 acres of scrub brush and canyon views. The house leaned dangerously, its porch collapsed. But beyond it, near a cluster of oak trees, stood a circular stone structure about 4 feet high. The well. Nora approached it carefully. The stones were fitted beautifully, craftsmanship from another era. A rusty iron frame held a pulley system, rope long rotted away. She shone her phone's flashlight down into the darkness. The beam disappeared into black water far below. Mom, what are we doing here? Lily was 11, old enough to understand they were about to be homeless, but young enough to still believe her mother could fix it. Grandpa left me this. I want to see what's here. A scary hole? Maybe. Nora circled the well. On the far side, carved into one of the stones, barely visible under lichen. Dig deeper. Tar, 1935 Tr. Thomas Reed. Her grandfather. Nora's father had told stories, Thomas Reed striking out during the Depression to homestead this land, drilling for water, hitting nothing but dry rock. The well was his failure, the family's joke. But he'd lived here for 40 years, died here in 1972, and he'd carved this message in stone. Her phone buzzed. The babysitter, tomorrow still good? Need to confirm. Tomorrow, Nora had court. The eviction hearing. She could fight it, maybe get another week, but the outcome was certain. She and Lily would be on the street by next Friday. She looked at the well, then at the property deed in her hand. Canyon Road. 5 acres. A condemned house and a hole in the ground. Come on, Lily. Let's go home. But driving away, Nora kept seeing that carved message. Dig deeper. Not dig around or dig elsewhere. Deeper. Down. At midnight, after Lily was asleep, Nora Googled 1935, homesteading Canyon Road, Portland. The search returned old newspaper archives. She clicked through yellowed pages until she found it. Local man claims gold strike. Others skeptical. The article was from June 1935. Thomas Reed told reporters he'd found gold traces in his well shaft while digging. Geologists dismissed him. The land had no gold-bearing geology. Thomas became a local joke. But he'd stayed. 40 years on worthless land with a dry well. Why? Nora pulled out modern geological surveys. Nothing useful. Then she searched abandoned wells Portland area and found a county database. Thomas Reed's well was listed. Estimated depth 200 feet, status inactive, recommended for proper sealing due to structural instability in lower shaft. 200 feet. Deep for a hand-dug well. Obsessively deep. Nora sat in the dark apartment. Eviction notice on the counter, daughter asleep in the next room. Her brothers had gotten millions. She'd gotten a mystery. She dialed a number from the Geological Survey website. Morrison Geological Services. This is Dr. Chun. Hi. This is going to sound strange, but I need someone to explore an old well. I think there might be something at the bottom. A pause. This about a water table evaluation? No. This about gold. Another pause. I'm listening. Dr. Chin arrived at Canyon Road on Saturday morning with equipment that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. Nora had spent her last $200 on his consultation fee. Lily sat in the car, doors locked, homework spread across her lap. This is the well. Dr. Chun peered over the stone edge. He was younger than Nora expected, maybe 35, wearing hiking gear and carrying sensors on a long cable. Beautiful stonework. 1930s, you said. My grandfather dug it. He claimed there was gold. Everyone thought he was crazy. During the Depression, a lot of people thought they'd strike it rich. Desperation makes people see things. He unspooled cable, attaching a waterproof camera and depth gauge. But I'll look. We'll get readings on rock composition, water quality, structural integrity. He lowered the camera slowly. On his tablet screen, darkness resolved into stone walls, slick with moss. Down, down. The cable counter spun. 50 feet, 75, 100. Water level. Dr. Chin murmured. The image went murky, greenish. Standing water starts at 112 feet. That's odd. Water table in this area should be deeper. This might be accumulation from a spring or seepage. The camera descended through water. Visibility dropped 2 inches. At 180 feet, the walls changed texture. Wait. Dr. Chun froze the feed, zoomed in. See that discoloration? That's not natural weathering. Nora leaned closer. The wall showed striations, layers of different colored rock. And running through it, a vein of something that caught the light differently. Something that gleamed even in the murky water. Is that gold quartz? Dr. Chin's voice went quiet. Or I'm hallucinating. Hold on. He attached a different sensor, one that measured mineral content. Lowered it to the same depth. The readings made him go completely still. Ms. Winters, your grandfather wasn't crazy. There's a gold-bearing quartz vein running through this well shaft. Based on these readings and the visible thickness, he did calculations on his tablet. This could be significant. Like, very significant. Define significant. I need to bring in a mining engineer. But if this vein continues beyond what we can see, if it's the tip of a larger deposit, he looked at her with something like awe. This could be worth millions. Possibly tens of millions. Nora sat down hard on the ground. The sun was bright. The canyon wind moved through dry grass. Everything looked the same, but the world had shifted. If you're following Nora's story, subscribe now. Because what happens next changes everything. Why didn't he mine it? Nora asked. My grandfather. If he knew it was there, why didn't he extract it? 1935? He probably tried. But getting gold out of a 200-foot well shaft with Depression-era equipment? Impossible. He'd need industrial machinery, engineers, permits. Things that cost money he didn't have. Dr. Chen stared at the well. So he just lived on top of it, knowing it was there, and left it for someone who'd have the resources to do something about it. Nora pulled out her father's note. Look deeper than they ever did. He told my father. My father left it for me. You'll need a mining engineer, environmental assessments, permits. This'll take months of prep work before extraction can start. But Ms. Winters. Dr. Chen met her eyes. Start talking to mining companies. This is the kind of find that makes careers. Nora called the first mining consultant that Monday. By Wednesday, 3 companies had sent representatives. By Friday, she was sitting in a lawyer's office, not her father's lawyer, her own, reviewing preliminary offers. Aztec Mining is offering $4 million upfront for exploration rights, with a percentage of extracted value, her lawyer said. Cascade Resources is offering $8 million guaranteed, no percentage. Northern Star is offering $2 million upfront, but 40% of total extracted value with an estimated deposit worth $20 to $30 million. The numbers didn't feel real. Nora looked at them on paper, typed in neat columns, and felt nothing but dizzy. Which would you recommend? Northern Star. You'd be gambling on the deposit size, but if it's as rich as preliminary surveys suggest, 40% could mean 12 to 15 million. 12 million. Enough to buy a house outright. Pay for Lily's college. Never work herself to exhaustion again. Enough to. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, heard you're talking to mining companies. About the well? Seriously? Don't embarrass the family name with another Reed gold rush fantasy. Dad would be mortified. Nora blocked his number. Then she called Jonathan and did the same. Draw up the Northern Star contract, she told her lawyer. I'll sign tomorrow. That night, Nora took Lily to the well one more time. The sun was setting, painting the canyon in gold and shadow. Mining flags marked the property now, bright orange in the failing light. So Grandpa Thomas found gold? Lily asked. He found it. We're going to get it out. And we won't be homeless? Nora pulled her daughter close. We won't be homeless. We're going to have a real house. With your own room. And a backyard. Can we get a dog? Yeah, baby. We can get a dog. They sat on the stone wall of the well, legs dangling, looking down into darkness that held everything they needed. Nora thought about Thomas Reed, digging by hand, hitting gold and knowing he couldn't touch it. She thought about her father, who'd kept the property despite Marcus and Jonathan's pressure to sell it for development. She thought about generations of Reed men who'd been dismissed, mocked, told they were chasing fantasy. And she thought about herself, erased from family photos, written off as the poor daughter who married badly, left with the worthless inheritance while her brothers got millions. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Ms. Winters, this is Gerald Preston from Preston Mining Consultancy. I've reviewed the Northern Star offer. Before you sign, I need to tell you, they're lowballing you badly. The vein extends deeper than their survey showed. I'm seeing indicators of a deposit potentially worth 40 to 50 million. Nora's hand tightened on the phone. Then what should I do? Negotiate. You're sitting on a legitimate gold strike. Make them earn it. The next morning, Nora walked into the Northern Star offices in a suit she'd bought the day before. The executives looked surprised. They probably expected the woman in the flour-dusted uniform. 50-50 split, Nora said. And I want quarterly transparent accounting of extraction progress. No buyouts. I stay vested until the deposit's exhausted. Ms. Winters, the standard. I don't care about standard. 50-50, or I take it to Cascade. They countered at 45. She took it. The contract took 6 hours to finalize. When Nora walked out, she had a guaranteed $5 million advance and 45% of a deposit now estimated at $45 million. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, how the hell did you get mining companies interested? What's on that property? Nora typed. Nothing you ever cared enough to look for. She hit send, then blocked his number again. The first extraction happened 6 months later. Nora stood with Lily at the canyon's edge, watching industrial equipment lower a mining platform into the well shaft. Engineers had stabilized the structure, reinforced the walls, pumped out the standing water. 200 feet down, the gold-bearing quartz vein gleamed under work lights. Dr. Chen stood beside them, grinning like a proud parent. Your grandfather was 70 years ahead of his time. The technology to safely extract this didn't exist until the 90s. But he knew it was there, Nora said. He knew, and he waited for someone who could do something about it. The first samples came up that afternoon, rich with visible gold. The mining engineer showed Nora the preliminary assay results. High grade, or potentially 48 million in total value. At 45%, Nora's share would be $21 million. $21 million. From a hole in the ground her brothers had laughed at. That night, in the house she'd bought 4 months earlier. A real house with 4 bedrooms and a yard where Lily's new dog ran in circles. Nora made a call. Marcus Reed. It's Nora. Silence. Then, I heard. The well. I heard what's down there. Did you? 20 million, they're saying. Maybe more. Nora, I didn't know. None of us knew. Dad knew. Grandpa Thomas knew. Nora kept her voice even. I know you're calling because you want something. You and Jonathan always want something when you call. The will. Dad wasn't in his right mind at the end, leaving you the most valuable asset while giving us $18 million? $12 million in property? Poor Marcus. Poor Jonathan. Nora laughed, surprising herself. You got exactly what you valued. The company. The portfolio. The impressive assets you could put on a spreadsheet. I got what you thought was worthless. That's not fair. We're family. You erased me from family photos. Jonathan didn't invite me to his wedding. You told your kids I didn't exist. We're not family, Marcus. We're people who shared a father. Nora paused. But I'll tell you what. I'm starting a foundation. The Thomas Reed Foundation for Single Parents. Financial support, housing assistance, business grants. I'm funding it with $2 million. If you want to contribute, I'll accept your donation. Otherwise, lose my number. She hung up before he could respond. The mail came an hour later. In it, a letter from Jonathan. Let's talk about the property. I can still broker a sale of the remaining land. You get top dollar. Call me. Nora threw it away. But there was another envelope, no return address. Inside, a photograph. Old, faded, from the 1940s. A man stood beside the well, hand resting on the stone. He was thin, weathered, proud. On the back, in pencil, Thomas Reed, 1943. 8 years knowing, 30 years waiting. The photo must have been in her father's belongings, mailed by someone cleaning out the estate. Nora studied her grandfather's face. He looked like a man guarding a secret. A man who'd spent decades living on top of fortune he couldn't touch, waiting for someone who could. 3 months later, the mining operation moved into full extraction. Nora visited weekly, watching tons of ore emerge from the ground. The engineers had discovered the vein was even richer than initial surveys suggested. Final value, $52 million. Nora's share, $23 million after taxes and fees. She paid off Lily's school through graduate level, full tuition, no loans. She bought a commercial building downtown and turned it into subsidized housing for single mothers. She funded scholarships for kids from low-income families. And she kept the Canyon Road property, turning the old homestead into a museum about Depression-era mining and her grandfather's impossible patience. The well itself was preserved, stabilized, turned into the centerpiece. Visitors could look down into it, see the extracted quartz vein behind glass, read Thomas Reed's story. And carved into the museum's cornerstone, Nora had added her own message. They told us we had nothing. We proved them wrong. 6 months after extraction finished, Nora got a call from Dr. Chen. I'm consulting on a similar project. Old homestead. Stories of gold. Family that dismissed it. Woman inherited it. Brothers got the valuable stuff. Reminded me of you. Tell her to look deeper, Nora said. And to get her own lawyer. She hung up smiling. That Saturday, Nora drove Lily to the museum. They'd opened it to the public 3 weeks ago. Already, school groups were booking tours. Single mothers came to see the foundation offices. Local papers ran stories, from eviction to empire. How one woman's worthless while held millions. They stood at the well's edge, just as they had that first night. But now lights illuminated the stabilized shaft. The gold-bearing vein was visible, extracted but documented, a testament to Thomas Reed's obsessive certainty. Mom. Lily was 13 now, confident in a way Nora had never been at that age. What if Grandpa Thomas had given up? sold the land. Then someone else would have the gold, or it would still be down there, waiting. But he didn't give up. No, he didn't. Nora looked at her daughter. And neither did your grandfather, my dad. He kept this property when everyone told him to sell. Kept it for me, even though he barely spoke to me for 15 years. Because he understood what his brothers didn't. That value isn't always obvious. That the worthless inheritance might be the most valuable thing of all. They walked through the museum together. Tourists took pictures of the well. A woman with 2 kids asked questions about Thomas Reed's mining techniques. A teenage girl stood in front of the foundation information, taking notes on her phone. Outside, the canyon spread golden in afternoon light. Nora's car sat in the paved lot, not the wheezing Honda anymore, but something reliable and safe. Her house waited in the city, warm and paid for. Lily's college fund grew steadily. The foundation was funding its 12th family this month. And somewhere in Portland, Marcus and Jonathan lived their lives of inherited wealth, never quite understanding that the joke had been on them all along. Nora's phone buzzed. The foundation director. 3 new applications today. All strong candidates. Your approval? Approve all 3, Nora typed back. We have the resources. They did. More than enough. That night, Nora sat in her home office, with a desk and bookshelves and a window overlooking the garden, and updated the foundation website. The mission statement still made her proud, for those dismissed and overlooked. For single parents told they're chasing fantasy. For anyone who's been told their inheritance is worthless. She added new photos from the museum opening, uploaded the latest grant recipient profiles, scheduled next month's fundraiser at the Canyon Road property. Then she opened her personal files and looked at the photo of Thomas Reed beside his well, a man who dug 200 feet into stubborn earth and found exactly what he was looking for. A man who'd lived on top of fortune for 40 years, patient and certain, waiting for someone with the resources to claim it. Nora printed the photo and hung it above her desk, next to her own edition. The first check from Northern Star Mining, framed. $23 million, made out to Nora Winters, the woman her brothers had dismissed. The daughter her father had barely spoken to. The single mother who'd faced eviction while her siblings divided millions. The woman who'd been left a leaky old well and found an empire at the bottom. Nora turned off the office light and walked through her quiet house. Lily was asleep, the dog curled at her feet. The mortgage was paid. The future was secure. And somewhere in the canyon, the well stood as a monument to everyone who'd ever been told to settle for less. She thought about her brothers, about the lawyer's conference room, about Marcus's laugh when he'd heard about her inheritance. A hole in the ground, he'd said. He'd been right, just not in the way he'd meant. Nora smiled and went to bed.